Hawaii is a tropical paradise, a land blessed with spectacular beauty and the spirit of aloha. Dana Ireland was smart, fit, and full of life. She loved the big island of Hawaii. On Christmas Eve, 1991, Dana's life was stolen. She was deliberately run over while riding her bicycle, sexually assaulted, dumped into the bushes, and left to die. A local man confessed to the murder and said 2 brothers helped him. The man recanted his confession, but no one believed him.
It's like the story of the boy who cried wolf. Once you start to tell the truth, nobody gonna listen.
Crime scene DNA did not match any of the 3 men, but all 3 were convicted anyway. It raises questions. Are the 3 convicted men innocent scapegoats? Why aren't the police pursuing the man who left his male DNA on Dana Ireland? Why was exonerating new DNA evidence locked up by court order and not given to the convicted men? This is episode 8. Harmony is restored. Shawn pleads guilty, confesses that Frank Pauline and his brother Albert raped and murdered Dana Ireland. The prosecutor claims Shawn passed a polygraph in support of his confession. Finally, justice has been done. Let's recap the evidence that convicted Albert Ian Schweitzer. 3 witnesses said the bloody blue t-shirt belonged to Frank Pauline. The proof directly against Ian Schweitzer was the testimony of a thief, Michael Ortiz, who said that Ian had confessed to the crime, and the testimony of an alleged drug dealer, John Gonzalez, who claimed he saw a 4th man with Frank Pauline, Ian, and Shawn on Christmas Eve. Many observers were less than satisfied. Among the critics was DNA expert Dr. Ed Blake. Dr. Blake was Frank Pauline's DNA expert who testified at his 1999 trial. Both Frank Pauline and Albert Ian Schweitzer had been convicted on the theory that there was a 4th attacker who explained the lack of a DNA match to the sperm fractions. In a 2004 A&E television interview, Dr. Blake questioned the 4th attacker theory.
In order to believe the state's theory of this case, one has to believe that while Frank Pauline is pointing his finger at the Schweitzer brothers, and while the Schweitzer brothers are pointing their finger at Frank Pauline, they just happened to forget about the one individual that they were allegedly at the crime scene with who raped Dana Ireland. That scenario on its face is preposterous.
On April 14, 2000, Rod Thompson, Big Island correspondent for the Honolulu newspaper Star Bulletin, reported that there was a plea deal in the works between Shawn Schweitzer and the prosecutor. The newspaper article noted that Shawn Schweitzer had confessed and told the police there was no 4th suspect. It appeared that law enforcement was backing away from the John Gonzalez testimony, giving up on the theory that there was a 4th man in the Schweitzer VW bug on Christmas Eve, 1991. There was validation of the Shawn Schweitzer story. He had passed a lie detector when he said that Frank Pauline and Albert Ian Schweitzer were the primary attackers and there was no 4th man. This was critical. An eyewitness to the crime, Shawn Schweitzer, stated he saw his brother, Albert Ian Schweitzer, run over Dana Ireland with his Volkswagen and saw Frank Pauline sexually assault her. Plus, sources confirmed he had passed a polygraph. The Star Bulletin newspaper sources were correct. On Monday, April 17, 2000, Shawn Schweitzer appeared in the court with his attorney, Keith Shigetomi. The prosecutor informed the judge that they were dropping the murder and sexual assault charges. Instead, Shawn Schweitzer would plead guilty to manslaughter and kidnapping for his involvement in the crime. He would get 5 years of probation. After he posted bail, Shawn Schweitzer was released on April 18, 2000. Perhaps the most important document in the entire case was not a DNA report, a police report, or a Supreme Court decision, but a press release. In an effort to explain the release of Shawn Schweitzer, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Lincoln Ishida issued a 4-page press release. He noted that on March 23, 2000, Shawn Schweitzer had provided police with a complete confession concerning his involvement and knowledge of the kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder of Dana Ireland. During both the trials of Frank Pauline and Albert Ian Schweitzer, 3 witnesses testified the bloody blue T-shirt left at crime scene 2 belonged to Frank Pauline. Now, significantly, an eyewitness to the crime, Shawn Schweitzer, was confirming their testimony. He also said the T-shirt left next to Dana Ireland had been worn by Frank Pauline. An important part of the press release was that Shawn Schweitzer passed a lie detector test. The passing of a polygraph was strong confirmation that the Hilo juries had got it right. Frank Pauline and Albert Ian Schweitzer murdered and raped Dana Ireland. Although not admissible in court, polygraph examinations can be a useful tool to help law enforcement assess the credibility of a witness. In this 2011 interview, newspaper reporter Rod Thompson discussed the Shawn Schweitzer confession and the polygraph.
The police took a taped confession from him with a polygraph, which indicated that he was telling the truth.
Shawn Schweitzer's case was over, but the appeals of Frank Pauline and Ian Schweitzer were still live and pending before the Hawaii Supreme Court. Officially, the prosecutor's press release and Shawn Schweitzer's confession could not be considered by the Supreme Court. But the members of the Supreme Court do read newspapers. Once you learn Shawn Schweitzer confessed and passed a polygraph, how does that, at least subconsciously, not affect your thinking in the related cases? On May 9, 2000, Shawn Schweitzer and his attorney, Keith Shigetomi, appeared in court for his sentencing. The judge sentenced Shawn Schweitzer to 5 years of probation. After the sentencing, Deputy Prosecutor Lincoln Ishida spoke to the press. Reporters asked him about the problem of no DNA match to any of the 3 defendants. Ishida said that he thought the sperm DNA was from Frank Pauline, but because the sample was small and degraded, it gave a false reading. He vowed his office would check with the lab for an explanation. Lisa Calandro was a court-appointed expert witness. She worked for the prosecution and defense. She conducted the DNA testing in her lab. In an August 24, 2019 email, she states she has no recollection of speaking with Lincoln Ishida after the Pauline and Schweitzer trials were over. Judges for Justice contacted Dr. Ed Blake in August 2019. He is a nationally recognized forensic scientist and was Frank Pauline's DNA expert. Blake also stated he had not been contacted by the Hawaii County prosecutor about a possible false reading, it appears that Lincoln Ishida did not contact either Dr. Ed Blake or Lisa Calandro. Judges for Justice believes Lincoln Ishida was not qualified to give an opinion on scientific evidence. He was wrong to question the sworn testimony of scientists. The net result? A prosecutor's opinion after the trials were over that the DNA test gave a false reading and that the sperm DNA belonged to Frank Pauline prevailed in the public mind over the sworn trial testimony of two highly regarded DNA scientists. Most people in Hawaii believe that law enforcement got it right. Harmony was restored. In a 2011 interview, reporter Rod Thompson spoke of relief felt on the Big Island after Shawn Schweitzer's sentencing, that finally justice has been done.
The community, if they didn't audibly breathe a sigh of relief, nevertheless people were thinking, finally justice has been done.
This ends episode 8. Thankfully, justice has been done. Case closed. Well, maybe not. In episode 9, we'll see a 2007 DNA test that shows the blue t-shirt did not belong to Frank Pauline or either Schweitzer brother.